Episode 5 Betrayal in the Shadows. The Louisiana swamps had always been a place of secrets. Beneath the moss-draped cypress trees and murky waters, whispers of betrayal and revenge mingled with the croaks of frogs and the cries of distant herons. Tonight, those secrets were about to boil to the surface. The Mapogo sat gathered in the barn, Turtle's leg wrapped in a makeshift bandage. The bullet wound had been nasty, but Panther's steady hands and quick thinking had kept Turtle alive. The air was heavy with unspoken words as they prepared for their next move. Lion stood before them, his imposing figure illuminated by the dim light of a single bulb. His voice was calm, but the edge of anger was unmistakable. "Cobra betrayed us," Lion said, his eyes scanning the faces of his brothers. "He led us into that ambush." Panther clenched his fists, his usually calm demeanor giving way to anger. "I knew he was reckless, but he put all our lives on the line." Turtle winced as he shifted in his seat. "We should have seen it coming. He's been itching for a fight since the judge." Rhino, who had been silently sharpening a knife, finally spoke. "Doesn't matter why he did it. What matters is stopping him before he gets more of us killed." Lion nodded. "Cobra knows our tactics, our weaknesses. If we don't handle this carefully, he'll destroy everything." Rhino. Carter was the oldest of the Mapogo, a mountain of a man with a quiet strength that made him both respected and feared. His nickname came not just from his size, but from his resilience. No matter how many times life knocked him down, he always got back up. Rhino had grown up working on his family's hog farm, a place that had seen more than its fair share of hard times. When his younger sister was killed in a botched corner store robbery, Rhino's world shattered. The police had shrugged it off as another casualty of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But Rhino couldn't let it go. He met Lion not long after, and though he was hesitant to join at first, Rhino saw in the Mapogo a chance to channel his anger into something meaningful. The hog farm became their sanctuary, a place where plans were made, wounds were healed, and justice was delivered. The plan Lion spread a map of the parish on the table, his finger tracing the lines of the swamp. "We know the Mambas are operating out of the old sugar mill on the edge of the bayou. That's where Cobra will be." Panther frowned. "It's a fortress. They've got men stationed at every entrance." "We don't need to go in guns blazing," Lion said. "We lure Cobra out, make him come to us." "And if he doesn't?" Rhino asked. Lion's jaw tightened. "Then we go in. Cobra's guilt." At the sugar mill, Cobra sat alone in a dimly lit room, staring at the blade he always carried. The weight of his betrayal hung heavy on his shoulders. He hadn't meant for things to go this far. Venom, the leader of the Black Mambas, entered the room with a swagger, his sharp features twisted into a smirk. "You're awfully quiet, Cobra. Having second thoughts?" Cobra looked up, his eyes hardening. "I didn't sign up to ambush my brothers." Venom laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You signed up to win. Don't tell me you're getting soft." Cobra stood, his muscles tense. "You don't know anything about loyalty." Venom's smile disappeared, and his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Loyalty doesn't keep you alive. Strength does. You'd do well to remember that." As Venom left, Cobra's grip tightened on his blade. He was beginning to realize he'd made a deal with the devil. The Mapogo set their trap in the swamp, using the terrain to their advantage. Turtle, despite his injury, worked tirelessly to rig a system of alarms and diversions. Panther scouted the area, ensuring there were no surprises. Rhino loaded his shotgun, his expression grim. "You think he'll come?" "He'll come," Lion said, his voice steady. "He's got too much pride not to." As night fell, the Mapogo waited in silence, their senses sharp. The swamp seemed to hold its breath, the usual cacophony of sounds muted. And then they heard it, the crunch of footsteps on the gravel path. The confrontation Cobra stepped into the clearing, his blade in hand. His eyes scanned the shadows, and for a moment he seemed almost relieved to see Lion step out to meet him. "You shouldn't have come alone," Cobra said, his voice laced with both anger and regret. "I'm not alone," Lion replied, and the rest of the Mapogo emerged from the darkness, their weapons at the ready. Cobra's grip on his blade tightened. "So this is how it ends?" "It doesn't have to," Lion said. "You can still come back. Help us finish what we started." Cobra shook his head, a bitter smile on his lips. "It's too late for that." Before Lion could respond, gunfire erupted from the trees. The Mambas had followed Cobra, and now they were closing in. The battle. The swamp exploded into chaos as the Mapogo and the Mambas clashed. Panther moved like a shadow, taking out enemies with swift precision. Rhino was a force of nature, his shotgun roaring like thunder. Turtle, despite his injury, provided cover fire from a hidden perch. Lion and Cobra found themselves back to back, their movements instinctively coordinated. For a brief moment, it was like old times. "You could have had this," Lion said between breaths. Cobra didn't respond, his focus on the enemies ahead. The aftermath. When the gunfire finally ceased, the swamp was eerily quiet. The Mambas had been defeated, but at a cost. Cobra stood apart from the group, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Lion approached him, his voice soft but firm. "It's not too late, Cobra. You can still come back." Cobra looked at Lion, his eyes filled with pain. "I don't deserve it." Without another word, Cobra turned and disappeared into the swamp, leaving the Mapogo to wonder if they'd ever see him again. Epilogue. As the first light of dawn broke over the bayou, the Mapogo returned to the hog farm, their wounds both physical and emotional. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Lion stood at the edge of the water, his reflection staring back at him. The swamp held many secrets, but the biggest one was this. Even the strongest bonds could be tested, and sometimes they broke. But for now, the Mapogo would fight on, together.